Hello and welcome to In Focus program. Today's topic of discussion is Dutch role in history of slavery. Points of discussion will be background of the news, history of Dutch slavery, apology by the Dutch king and prime minister, steps taken by the Dutch government, views over Dutch apology, and practice questions. First of all, moving on to the background of the news. The 150th anniversary of the abolishment of slavery in Suriname and in Dutch colonies in the Caribbean in 1873 is marked by 2023. The King of the Netherlands, Willem-Alexander, has apologized for his country's role in the slavery of colonized people during his visit to Suriname. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte had also offered a full apology for the Dutch role in slavery in December 2022. Now moving on to history of Dutch slavery. Dutch involvement with slavery went hand in hand with the expansion of its colonial and trading interest across the globe in the 17th century, referred to in the Netherlands as the Golden Age. After the establishment of the Dutch East India Company trading company in 1602 and the Dutch West India Company a few years later, trading including slaves rapidly expanded. Before the Netherlands became a country, various ethnic groups lived in the area. The prominent of them were the Celts and the Germanic people. The society of both these ethnic groups consisted of nobles, freemen, and slaves. Between 1596 and 1829, the Dutch transported about 500,000 Africans across the Atlantic. Large numbers were taken to the small islands of Curaçao and St. Eustatius in the Caribbean. Most of the Africans landed there, however, were subsequently transshipped through Spanish colonies. The Dutch also shipped about 500,000 Africans to their settlements in Dutch Guiana, notably Suriname, where they worked primarily on sugar plantations. Due to the unpaid labor of the slaves, the Dutch grew and prospered economically. Descriptions of mistreatment by Dutch slaveholders and the images by William Blake were an important weapon for the mainly British advocates of the abolition of slavery. Towards the end of the 18th century, protest against slavery began to grow. The economic recession of 1773 caused a decline in the entire Dutch merchant shipping industry, including the slave trade. Slavery was abolished in Suriname and the Dutch colonies in the Caribbean on 1 July 1863, but the last enslaved people were set free in 1873. Now, apology by the Dutch King and Prime Minister. The Dutch King, Willem-Alexander, has apologized for the Netherlands' historical involvement in slavery and the effects that it still has today. In December, the Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, acknowledged that the Dutch state bore a responsibility in the Atlantic slave trade and had profited from it, and apologized. Last year, Willem-Alexander commissioned a study into the role of the Royal House of Orange-Nassau in slavery in the Netherlands, covering the period from the late 16th century to today. Now, steps taken by the Dutch government. According to an official statement last December, the government will make 200 million euros available in a fund for measures aimed at raising awareness, fostering engagement, and addressing the present-day effects of slavery. However, the Dutch Prime Minister has said that the government will not pay reparations, contrary to recommendations made by an advisory panel in 2021. The government in its recent statement said it will give the Netherlands' role in the history of slavery a substantial place in education, as this is where young people come into contact with history. Now moving on to views over Dutch apology. Some activist groups had asked for monetary reparations to have been made. They had also asked the history of slavery to be included in the school education. There is also the issue of present-day issues of racism. The country has seen allegations of systematic racism in its police force and other government services. But a fraction of Dutch people feel that nation today has nothing to apologize for in crimes committed centuries ago, while some fear that an apology can open the floodgates to demand for reparations. Now it's time for the practice questions. First of all, prelims question. Slavery was abolished from Suriname and the Dutch colonies in the Caribbean in the year 1863, 1873, 1883 or 1893. And now mains question. The Atlantic slave trade route was a triangular system that connected Europe, Africa and the Americas. Comment. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.